Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're doing something wild. We're shrinking right down and diving into the incredibly complex, microscopic world of the cell. But we aren't just going to look at it as a random blob of biology. We're going to treat it exactly like what it is, a bustling, highly efficient, and honestly mind-blowing factory. But hey, before we step through the doors of this facility, let's get our scale right. If you look at the calculation, by taking the image size and dividing it by the actual size, we get measurements coming out to about 6.81 times 10 to the power of -3 millimeters. That shows just how unbelievably tiny these organelles really are. We're talking about a massive manufacturing plant that literally fits right on the head of a pin.
So, here's our facility map for today. We'll hit up headquarters, walk the manufacturing and shipping floors, check out waste management and the powerhouse, and finally, uncover a wild evolutionary twist, the Ancient Alliance. Let's get to it.
All right, stop number 1, the cellular headquarters, also known as the nucleus. Let's start at the very top. Now this headquarters, it is heavily protected. It's completely wrapped in a nuclear envelope, which is basically a double membrane. And notice those pores. They act like super strict security gates, meticulously controlling everything that goes back and forth between the secure inner nucleus and the bustling cytoplasm outside. Inside that secure envelope, we've got the master blueprints, and they are organized perfectly. The nucleus holds your chromosomes, and since DNA molecules are just incredibly long, they have to be tightly folded up into these compact chromosome shapes so they don't turn into a tangled mess. Those chromosomes hold the folded DNA, which then breaks down into specific genes. It is honestly the ultimate biological filing system. Also operating right there in headquarters is the nucleolus. It's that distinct, really dark-stained, round structure sitting directly inside the nucleus. And its whole job? It uses the info from its own DNA to manufacture the factory's workers. It synthesizes ribosomal RNA, creating the actual ribosomes that are going to go out and do the heavy lifting for us. Moving on to department number 2, the manufacturing floor, home to the endoplasmic reticulum and those hard-working ribosomes. Stepping out of headquarters, you hit this massive, intricate network of flattened sacs running through the cytoplasm, called the ER, and it's split into 2 main departments. First up, the rough ER. They call it rough because it is literally studded with those ribosomes we just mentioned, making it the site where proteins are assembled. Then you've got the smooth ER. No ribosomes here. Instead, the smooth side focuses on manufacturing lipids, steroids, and hormones. Fun fact, in your liver, this smooth ER is actually the department working overtime to metabolize drugs. Now what's really fascinating is how we actually measure these factory workers, the ribosomes. They're measured in Svedberg's units. You'll see that as a little s. It basically shows how fast they sediment in a high-speed centrifuge. The faster they sediment, the higher the unit. In our larger eukaryotic factories, the workers size up at 80s. But in smaller, simpler prokaryotic cells like bacteria, those ribosomes are a bit smaller, coming in at 70s. Seriously, lock that 70s number in your brain because it's going to be a massive clue in just a minute.
All right, on to Department 3, Packaging and Shipping, run by the Golgi apparatus.
Once our proteins and lipids are successfully manufactured, they can't just sit there. They need to be sorted and shipped. Enter the Golgi. It's made of these flattened sacs called cisternae, and it's incredibly dynamic, constantly building up at one end and breaking off at the other. It grabs molecules from the rough ER, processes them, maybe slaps on some sugars to make glycoproteins for cell signaling, and then packages the final product into Golgi vesicles. Think of those as tiny, highly targeted delivery bubbles rushing off to other parts of the cell, or straight to the cell membrane for secretion. And that leads us directly into the secretory pathway. Releasing stuff from the cell is called secretion, and the route these molecules take is 100% deliberate. It completely proves that the nucleus, the rough ER, and the Golgi aren't just random blobs floating around in the dark. They form one continuous, perfectly synchronized, interconnected assembly line. It's an absolute masterpiece of biological logistics.
Next up, number 4, Cellular Waste Management, handled by the lysosomes.
Look, no manufacturing plant is perfectly spotless. Every factory makes waste, parts break down, and you absolutely need a serious recycling center. Inside the cell, that exact job belongs to the lysosomes. These spherical, single-membrane organelles act as the cell's demolition crew. They're packed with crazy destructive digestive enzymes called hydrolases. Through a process called hydrolysis, they tear apart unwanted junk,
chew up old damaged organelles, and in a worst-case scenario, they can even self-destruct the entire cell in a process called autolysis.
So how on earth do they hold that kind of destructive power without melting the cell? Well, to work at all, those powerful hydrolytic enzymes require a highly acidic environment. The reaction is fastest right between a pH of 4 and 5. The lysosome strictly maintains that acid inside itself. If a lysosome were to accidentally leak a bit, the neutral pH of the surrounding cell basically shuts the enzymes down, safely protecting our factory from digesting itself from the inside out. Pretty brilliant, right?
Moving on to number 5, the powerhouse, the mitochondria.
To keep this massive, complex factory running, to power the assembly lines and the waste disposal, we need an immense amount of energy. The mitochondria have this very unique double membrane setup. The outer membrane is perfectly smooth, but the inner membrane, it's folded into these finger-like projections called cristae. And that folding is pure genius. It massively increases the surface area for aerobic respiration. Deep inside those folds is a space called the matrix, which holds the exact enzymes needed to pull off these complex energy reactions.
The whole point of that respiration process is to generate ATP, or adenosine triphosphate. ATP is a tiny, soluble particle, but more importantly, it is the universal energy carrier for all living cells. Whenever energy is needed literally anywhere in our factory, an ATP molecule is broken down into ADP, releasing the exact burst of juice required to get the job done. It is the physical currency keeping the lights on in every single department we've explored.
And now we reach number 6, the ancient alliance, the endosymbiotic theory. We've seen how the factory works, but this is where our tour takes a massive evolutionary plot twist.
Remember earlier when we established that our big eukaryotic factory workers are ADS ribosomes? We'll look closely at these specifics. The mitochondria? They have 70S ribosomes. Wait, what? And on top of that, mitochondria have their very own small, circular DNA molecules. Circular DNA and 70S ribosomes are characteristics that perfectly match ancient bacteria. They are entirely different from the rest of the larger cell they're sitting inside. This concrete physical evidence points right to the endosymbiotic theory. It's a proven biological concept, showing that our cellular power plants, the mitochondria, actually used to be completely independent ancient bacteria. Millions of years ago, a larger cell completely engulfed one of these smaller bacteria, but instead of tearing it apart in a lysosome, they struck a deal.
That deal is symbiosis, a mutually beneficial relationship. It's the ultimate biological win-win. The ancient bacteria got a safe, nutrient-rich place to hang out inside the larger cell. And in return, the larger cell got a highly efficient, ATP-producing power plant that let it grow way more complex than ever before.
So here's the absolute coolest takeaway from today's explainer. Your cells aren't just isolated mechanical factories. They are incredibly ancient biological alliances. Every single time your heart beats, every breath you take, you are relying on the descendants of ancient bacteria living right inside your cells. Which kind of leaves us with a provocative thought to end on. If our very own power plants are actually ancient invaders turned allies, what other mind-blowing secrets of evolutionary history are hiding inside us right now? Thanks for joining me on this microscopic tour, and keep exploring.